Hello class and welcome to this Mega Man X3 walkthrough right here on Video Games 101 by way of Let's Play with Brigands. I'm your instructor, Professor Brigands, and here we are in the final entry in the X series on the SNES. Very sad, but in the year 21XX, all the Mavericks have been neutralized thanks to the efforts of, I would have credited X and Zero, but that's fine. We can give credit to this mysterious Dr. Doppler, who I'm sure in no way, shape, or form will turn out to be the bad guy in this game. Whenever they introduce someone as being a good guy at the start of a game from this era, you know they're going to be the bad guy. And to Capcom's credit, they actually identify, and they don't try to use it as some big reveal. They identify him as the bad guy in just a moment, even though he founded Doppeltown, the perfect utopian community. Every time someone creates a perfect utopian community, you know they're the bad guy in one of these games. It never turns out to be that way, but I digress. Very happy to be doing this class. We've done classes now on the first two Mega Man X's in the series here on Video Games 101, and the response has been very good to those two classes, so glad to finish out the SNES trilogy here in Mega Man X3, which, if you played Mega Man X2, it's not too different. They didn't really introduce a whole lot new to the formula in this one. The difficulty is pretty much the same. In terms of difficulty, I'm once again going to give Mega Man X3 for the SNES a 5 out of 10, which on the frustration scale equates to throwing your controller across the room. Maybe because you can't find that one upgrade, but don't worry, we got you covered. This is the 100% completionist Mega Man X3 walkthrough. We're going to show you how to find every single upgrade. Every secret will be covered. Fluff's going to share a number of interesting facts about this. Blaze is covering every weapon, every item in the game. And Gary, as always, has your boss beaters, the tips on taking down the many bosses here in Mega Man X3. And perhaps most important of all, I'm going to share my recommended Mega Man X3 boss order on the other side of the intro. So let's run that intro and get into this Mega Man X3 walkthrough right here on Video Games 101. Alright, you know it's a long in-game intro when it outlasts my intro, so it was still going. So in the interest of efficiency, we're going to go ahead and just jump forward and get into the actual game. We're going to leave the controls at their default settings, and we got this kind of cold open right here, so let's take a look at the controls for Mega Man X3. Not too dissimilar from Mega Man X2, in fact they're pretty much the same. The one thing that I will call attention to is the fact that we can now play as Zero. People have been asking for it for years. You can finally do it in this game, and it's kind of disappointing. You can't use him for any of the bosses, but for what it's worth, yeah, bring up that weapons menu with start, press R, and then press start to select and swap out Zero for X on demand. As long as you're not about to fight a boss, he will automatically switch back to X in that case. Note that I will not be using Zero at all until very late at the end of the game, and that is purely to show you how to unlock a secret weapon for X. But we'll talk about that. There's a lot to get to. But yes, there are your controls. I still love the ability to quickly cycle between weapons with L and R. Just absolutely hate bringing up that weapons menu. Probably a lot of why I don't like to bring in Zero. It takes too long, and then there's the back and forth between him and X. I'm very impatient, class. This game is long enough. We don't need to pad it out by bringing up menus. But yes, once we get some more weapons, we can cycle between them with L and R. And once again, they pawned off most of X's upgrades, and we've got to find them all again. I don't understand that. How much could the upkeep possibly cost to keep... And this is a lose by design battle right here. We won't bring in Gary for this. Just get hit and we'll actually switch over to Zero by design here in just a second. But yeah, how much could it possibly cost to keep X in his leg, arm, head, body, all those upgrades in the off-season, during peacetime? He's practically the world's only hope when something goes down. You'd think everyone could at least take up a collection to make it a little bit easier on him at the start of each adventure. I mean, look at this. This probably wouldn't have happened had we had our upgrades right here. I don't get it. Maybe X is just the eternal optimist, saying at the end of each game, I'm sure I won't need leg upgrades anymore. Nothing bad will ever happen again. Forget battle applications even. I just think it would come in handy. Like if he locks himself out of his apartment and needs to boost up to the second floor window to get in, but I digress. Yeah, Zero doesn't handle too dissimilarly from X. He does have his arm upgrade at the start. Just transition back and forth with the dash jumps between these walls to avoid most of these big old spiked balls there. Just tapping dash and jump together with B and A, assuming you didn't remap anything. There he is. I don't really, kind of a pet peeve of mine, and we'll just automatically run over there and stab that guy for acting a fool. And then just charge up your weapon, climb that wall, and shoot the little housing device there that's trapped Mega Man X, excuse me. It bothers me, though, at how feeble that they always present X in these games when, honestly, he's the one doing, 99% of the work. I mean, I get it. They make Zero seem very cool in these games, but I digress once again. Let's go to Gary for the first time with tips on this first very straightforward boss battle here in Mega Man X3. It's Scary Gary's Boss Beaters.
Alright, kind of difficult to lose this first boss battle here in Mega Man X3 against Maoh the Giant, Maoh the Giant, however you pronounce it. If you want, you can kind of be on the outside of either arm and then dash inside once it launches at you, but honestly, you don't need to dodge anything, just use charge shots at the head. You'll take some damage, but you'll dish out more than you take. You'll take him down.
Thank you very much, Gary. Yeah, you can see we're not really using any strategy here, and yet, there you go. Alright, so that first boss, now that they're down, we'll have the classic Mega Man stage select, and we'll be addressing the best, well, that's a very relative term, the recommended Mega Man X3 boss order here in this game. And I want to mention before we share it that it's always subjective, right? There's always a lot of debate about the best boss order going back to the very first Mega Man where, it's comparatively much simpler, much more straightforward. But in this game, you have so many different items, upgrades, hidden things to find. There's a more efficient route to going through all these stages, but given that there's just so many factors in this one, I'm going to go ahead and this is our recommended Mega Man X3 boss order. And I'm sure there will be more debate over this than any other Mega Man game we've covered, X or otherwise, just because there's just so many ways to approach this. I recommend beginning with Blizzard Buffalo to get the leg upgrade, and then that makes getting subsequent upgrades and dealing with all the bosses of the game much easier. And then we just go basically based on boss weakness. So Blizzard Buffalo, Toxic Seahorse, Tunnel Rhino, Volt Catfish, Crush Crawfish, Neon Tiger, Gravity Beetle, and then finally Blast Hornet with some revisiting of stages peppered in between. So we can get all the upgrades, take down all of the additional bosses in the right order with the correct weapons. It's a whole thing. It's very complicated. So as always, please share your recommended boss order for Mega Man X3 in the comments. There's no wrong answers for the most part, so hopefully everyone can appreciate my approach to that. And here we go, here in Blizzard Buffalo stage. Be very careful of the ice here. The ice which will melt after we take down a subsequent boss and visit here a little bit later on. But yeah, note that the ice is a little bit slippery, and they love to put it right in front of very dangerous instant death spike pits, obviously. But definitely need to grab that leg upgrade early on in order to give ourselves that air dash. There are a couple additional bosses named Bit and Byte who may appear here a little bit later on, but not until we've taken out 2 of the Maverick bosses. So we have it set up in such a way that you'll have the proper weapon for taking down each of those bosses, and of course, the proper strategy. Gary's always got you covered on that front. But I fully acknowledge there are more efficient routes to take to beat this game where you don't have to backtrack in order to collect all or most of everything. By the way, there's nothing down there right now. There's a lot of stages which vary slightly in what will appear there depending on what you've already accomplished. So, but yeah, this route will allow you to do everything that we're covering here. But yes, just acknowledging there is a more efficient route to go, but we also wanted something that would be, you know, relatively easy for everyone playing this on top of that. So if you dash jump at the very edge, and I mean very edge, like almost falling off that platform, you can grab onto that wall right there and climb up here. I should mention that if you want to switch to Zero right there, he has, in my experience, just a little bit more of a dash ability in order to get over to that platform a little more handily with just a little less difficulty. But here we go. We got the leg upgrade. We can do that air dash now. You can also air dash up in addition to left or right for what that's worth. So now let's backtrack just a little bit and we can pick up that E-Tank now that we've got ourselves our leg upgrade here. Assuming we don't die from these regular enemies, that wouldn't be a good look. So you want to get to the very edge of this, just do a normal jump to the left, and then right about in that spot, you can air dash vertically up right there to grab the edge of that platform and grab yourself the first E-Tank. And we'll bring in Blaze to cover the items once again in just a moment. But as we're trying to get a little bit of health here to get back on our feet, let's take a look at the Briggs notes for this Mega Man X3 walkthrough, the keys to beating this game. Very similar to Mega Man X2. First and foremost, follow this guide for the best level and boss order. We've talked about that. I've talked about that at length. Use Gary's boss beaters. As always, get all the upgrades. Once we have them all late in this game, this becomes a cakewalk. It's kind of silly. And use all your acquired weapons liberally. Blaze will talk about some of the better ones to use when you're out and about, but always a good decision. And if I wanted to add a fifth Briggs note, I would say when you're getting low on health, you might want to switch over to Zero. Admittedly, once again, will not help you when it comes to fighting bosses, but you know what will? Our friend Gary.
Boss beaters. I'm sorry to say that I feel like Capcom dropped the ball a little bit with the boss designs here in Mega Man X3, as you can apply the same basic strategy to a lot of them to easily take them down, beginning with Blizzard Buffalo here. When he charges at you, just climb that wall. When he gets close to the wall, just do a dash jump over top of his head. Charge up your X-Buster and get shots off when you can, prioritizing not taking damage from the boss. But he has two additional moves. He has a big freeze ray which goes across the screen, but you can easily avoid that by staying on the top half of either wall. And then he has more individual freezing shots which he'll fire at you, which you can also avoid if you stay at the very top of either wall as well. And then just, dash jump out when he gets close to you once again, and get those shots off when you can, and you'll take him down.
Thank you, Gary. Yeah, I think once they introduced the ability to climb walls and then dash as well, just doing dash jumps, not even air dashes, it became the key to taking down a lot of these bosses. But there you go, making not quick work, but easy work of our first of the Mavericks here in Blizzard Buffalo. And we acquire our first weapon to go along with it, Blaze.
It's Blaze's best here in Item Sky.
Alright, the first weapon which we're getting here in Mega Man X3 with this recommended order, Frost Shield from Blizzard Buffalo. I want to mention, I'm going to point out the effect each of these has if you charge them as well. We can't do that at this point in the game, but once you get that arm upgrade a little bit later on, like in the last game, then you can go ahead and access that second level of that weapon, but for what it's worth. But yes, the Frost Shield creates a powerful slow-moving left to right or right to left shot, which it leaves a mine on the ground if it doesn't hit anything, and so better chance of hitting a target then. Useful for a couple bosses, but the charge creates kind of a frost shield. A literal frost shield is the name of the weapon, which X holds. But underwater has a different effect, creates an iceberg which floats to the surface, which you can use as a floating platform, which the professor will mention a little bit later on.
Thank you very much, Blaze. Good call. Bring you back in just a moment in order to talk about the basic items and get the rare appearance from these guys. Won't see these guys again until the end of the game, actually. But this is our first water level here in Mega Man X3, so it's worth mentioning that, don't jump down there, but it's worth mentioning that there is a way to, well, I'll let Fluff explain it.
I want to point out here in our first water level that X can once again use a move called the Splash Jump, which I covered in our class on Mega Man X2. To perform this move, simply repeatedly tap jump when on the surface of the water to keep yourself from dropping beneath the waves. As I mentioned in our class on X2, this was a test feature which was ultimately left in that game, much to the annoyance of original Mega Man character designer, not to mention X and Zero's character designer, Keiji Inafune. Nonetheless, the move was once again included here in Mega Man X3.
Good call, Fluff. Thank you very much. And we just grabbed our first heart upgrade right there. You can see just by climbing up that wall a little bit further. Not difficult to get in the least, but dropping down here beneath the waves. And if you take that track, you can just slide right in down here through the opening. And go to the right, all the way into this little opening here to get where we're ultimately going. All right, that's interesting. And got another mini boss here, Gary.
Boss beaters.
All right, Hotareeca. I don't know how you want to pronounce some of these names, but I know how to beat him. Stay in the bottom left side of the screen, or the left side of the screen. He basically can't hit you there with his projectiles or even his body nearly the entire battle. Get those charge shots off on him. Once he backs away a little bit, make sure he's not directly against that left side of the wall when you try to hit him, but he is weak against the Triad Thunder weapon, but assuming you're playing this in the order we recommend, you don't have that yet, so just use your charge shots, take him down.
Thanks, Gary, as they drain the water here. Let's go to Blaze now for an overview on the items here in Mega Man X3.
Alright, let's cover the basic items and a couple upgrades you can find here in Mega Man X3, starting with the health refill. Same with the weapon, actually. The small is worth 2 meters of your health and weapon respectively, and then the large 8 meters. And then the X helmet, that's worth an extra life. And then hidden amongst every stage, or some stages, in the case of the heart, every stage. In the case of the E-Tank, there's 4 of these, but you get 2 extra health to your health total when you get the heart. And then the E-Tank gives you an extra health tank, which you can draw on demand, assuming you're filling it up with those energy refills. Once you're at full health, these will slowly fill up, but there you go. The items and a couple of those hidden upgrades you have to be on the lookout for here in Mega Man X3.
Thank you, Blaze and Gary.
Boss beater.
Alright, another boss here in Toxic Seahorse, which has a very simple strategy which we can apply to a couple other bosses as well. In this case, use that frost shield, hit him, this will force him to jump, just dash underneath, staying close to him. Once that damage wears off, hit him again, force another jump, keep this up, he won't be able to get any moves off, repeat it, you'll take him down.
Good call, Gary. Thank you very much. Yeah, very simple, and I think I see what you mean when you said during that first Maverick battle that Capcom kind of dropped the ball a little bit with the boss designs here. They're not all going to be that easy, admittedly, but still a little concerning early on. Let's go to Blaze and see what we just got.
Alright, the Acid Burst fires a powerful, slow arcing shot, which does explode and split upon impact with the surface. Useful for a few bosses in this game, but charging it up creates 2 larger bouncing projectiles which last a little bit longer and have a better chance of hitting your target.
Thank you, Blaze, and we'll get a cutscene now. As I mentioned, after we take down the first 2 Mavericks, Bit and Byte will enter the fight, and yeah, we'll be taking them on at the point at which we want to take them on, using the weapons which you need to use to destroy them, and we'll even get an appearance from an old friend of ours. I say that sarcastically, but wait for it here. Bit's the smaller one, in case you were wondering. I guess neither Bit nor Byte as names would make you think of a large boss, but there he is. Old pal Vile. Mysterious Maverick, come on. I guess if no one played the first 2 Mega Man X games, but yeah, he's back. He's always back. And well, I'm sure Gary's got some good strategies for dealing with him. We need to defeat him with one weapon in particular. It's kind of interesting. If you don't take him down with the correct weapon, he doesn't actually die, and we'll have to fight him later on in the game, which also affects some other things, changes some other things. So, interesting. We actually can't get the most powerful weapon in the game unless we defeat him early on with the right weapon. There's a lot of curveballs here in Mega Man X3, to say the least. Another part of the reason why the boss order is so debatable, so interesting. But anyway, moving on to our third recommended of the Mavericks here in Tunnel Rhino. And even before you play this guy, you think, well, this guy might be prone to charging, and as such, maybe prone to a very familiar strategy, but I'll keep you in suspense for the moment on that one. The heart upgrade and the sub-tank are both early on in this stage before the mini-boss, but we cannot gain access to the heart tank just yet until we get a weapon which we don't have, and the arm upgrade, which we once again pawned off for who knows, but we would use it right there. We'll come back for that one. If you have the Triad Thunder weapon and the arm upgrade, then you can go ahead and grab that. But assuming you're following along with this order here in our Mega Man X3 walkthrough, we'll just pop back in a little bit later. We can grab the very easy to get sub-tank here. Just do a little dash jump off of that wall. There's a weapon energy refill right there if you need a big one, but not generally ever necessary until we get relatively late in the game. But yeah, certainly not in any of these normal Maverick stages right here. But another area where we might fight Bit or Byte, but not in this run. We do, however, have a dedicated mini-boss for this stage, who's always here, coming up in just a moment. Yeah, if you want to use the ice shield on these enemies, take them out a little bit faster, it's your prerogative, but there's another area where something is held behind a boulder, which we can only take down if we have that aforementioned Triad Thunder and the arm upgrade. It's actually to get the helmet upgrade. It's over there to the left right there. We can't do anything about it at the moment, so just keep on pressing on here. Just bait that boulder to come out prematurely, and let's go to Gary for tips on this one.
Boss beater.
Alright, the Hell Crusher. This is that Blizzard Buffalo strategy once again. Climb that wall. The higher the better, because if he knocks you down, you won't take damage. If you're a little bit higher up, because when you fall, he'll have backed away a little bit, but just get those shots, those charge shots, off at his head. Repeat this, not too difficult.
Thank you, Gary, and we can ride that bottom section when he detaches there, but not that big of a deal. And you'll see that earthquake kind of lingers off of that wall right there, and you can see if you don't get high enough, you will take some damage from that drill. I don't know why it doesn't linger there for a bit longer to ensure some damage, but I guess that's why he's just mini-boss status. Just repetitive, as are a number of bosses in this game. Down he goes. And a tiny health refill for the effort. Thank you very much, Hell Crusher. Not really worth the effort. And we can just do a, there we go. You heard me complaining. Just do a little dash jump to get over a lot of these stationary enemies. If you're feeling impatient, like I often am in a Mega Man game. Can't wait to get that Triad Thunder. It makes getting through sections like this so much easier. And I'm sure there are a number of comments from members of the class who swear by prioritizing getting that weapon earlier on for the reason I mentioned. Or maybe you have a favorite weapon of your own here in Mega Man X3. Curious to know that as well if that's the case. But we climb up here, the final stretch ahead of taking on Tunnel Rhino. Seems like you could go to the left there, but not so much. Nothing hidden waiting for us up here, which is a shame because it takes a little bit of effort to get up there, but yeah, nothing hidden. Alright, let's get some tips on Tunnel Rhino. I think I have a guess, but Gary?
Boss beater.
Alright, I'm just gonna call it the BB strategy here, but it works on Tunnel Rhino. You wanna hit him with that acid burst, climb the wall. When he comes at you, dash jump over him, hit him again, climb the wall, dash jump over him, repeat the process. The BB strategy works.
There you go. As does the rock, paper, scissors, paper, rock, scissors, whatever order you want to say that method for taking down the bosses in this game. That's basically the thought process behind our recommended order. After we get that leg upgrade, obviously. And he gets a little impatient there at the end, which I can appreciate, obviously. I do appreciate that Capcom shifted away by this game, and you know, most of the X series and the SNES era, as most developers did. They shifted away from the whole flashing, seizure triggering effect that was so rampant and popular in NES titles back in the 80s, but what did we just get, Blaze?
Alright, the Tornado Fang. This is a powerful, initially very slow-moving left to right or right to left shot, which begins to accelerate across the screen until it hits its target, and then it bores into that target, getting repeated hits in. Very nice, especially against certain bosses in this game, but charging this up just creates a handheld drill, which X carries, which slowly eats away at your weapon energy points.
Thank you very much, Blaze, as we make our first return here, in this case to Blizzard Buffalo Stage. And we'll be able to grab ourselves very early on, be careful with the ice there, by using the Tornado Fang right here at the start to clear out each of these giant ice blocks. But yeah, this is a powerful weapon if you get very close up on certain enemies, because it does take so long to get to your target. Not practical firing it across the screen, but if you get up close, that's the way to do it, and I recommend taking out all the blocks before you try going across, rather than just squeezing through that little hole, as sometimes you can not stick the landing and get stuck by some nasty needles there. So, but we got ourselves the heart upgrade. Very nice. Every little bit helps as we move on now to the next, keep wanting to say Robot Master, but Maverick, here in Bolt Catfish, for that very important weapon that I've been teasing here. We'll see what Blaze has to say about it. This looks straight out of Sparkman stage, right here at the top. These beams right here, it's safer to wait until they are either fully left or fully right before you go ahead and skip over this. That's going to take us to Vile, which we don't want to do as of yet until we get the weapon for properly taking down Vile, as mentioned. Fill up our tanks a little bit here with these energy refills. Don't mind taking it the manual way, but yeah, the little beams right there dash through when they're hard left or right to avoid taking damage from them. If you try dashing through when they're centered or slightly just off-center, then they'll typically trigger and cause damage to you before you can get through. Mind the spikes. These don't look as intimidating as some of the others, but these will also cause instant death. But we're going to ride this one all the way up, and this is a very dangerous one. Be ready to immediately start jumping, because yeah, they do like to freeze that screen there for a second. Mind those spikes as well. That was a close call. Needed to shave, but yeah, it's they like to freeze that screen to acknowledge that you just got an upgrade right there, and the health upgrade. But yeah, once it wears off, those spikes are very much back in play. So yeah, just be tapping that jump button. It's a good color on X, by the way, the Frost Shield. Like the blue. We're going to ride this all the way up just to show you something that we can't do yet. We need a weapon and the arm upgrade to be able to get to the top of that area right there. Use the Frost Shield to take out some of these weaker enemies with a single shot in some cases. So many hidden things though in this game, a lot of it unnecessary, like we're coming up on a junction here with a kind of an elevator shaft without an elevator, and you can climb up, but there would be at the top, if you go there, a ride armor, which we have not even unlocked yet. The ride armor is, yeah, if you go climb up the wall there instead of coming down here, which is the natural way to go to get to Volt Catfish. But yeah, there's a lot of unnecessary stuff in this game which just isn't used all that effectively or necessarily. Zero's one of them, and yeah, the ride armor I would certainly say. And then in addition to all of the normal upgrades, there's also kind of double upgrades on top of that. These come in the form of computer chips, and there's one for the arm, legs, etc. For unlocking like a second tier for each ability. The catch is you can only have one of these in your body, so if you abstain from collecting any of them over the course of this game, then you can unlock the ultimate chip, the hyper chip, which allows you to equip all four, or have the ability to have all four of these. So we'll be showing you where all of the 4 individual chips are. We won't be collecting them so that we can get that ultimate hyper chip, but we'll talk about that as we go. For now, let's get some tips on Volt Catfish with Gary.
Boss beater.
Alright, Volt Catfish, the toxic seahorse strategy works once again, only you won't have to dash underneath him. You want to use your tornado fang to hit him. This could get maybe a couple shots in, but he'll jump at you. Repeat this process. Once he gets a little bit too close to that wall, then you can climb over the wall, dash jump over, but he's so slow, this is not difficult in the least, but we could definitely stun lock him from getting any actual offensive moves off by doing this. Take him down.
Yeah, you see, if you're quick enough, as Gary mentioned, he'll just, he'll go back to that. Yeah, every now and then he'll go to the middle, but if we hit him fast enough, he can't draw any energy from that. I like that, the Toxic Seahorse strategy, the TS, which it happens to be right now for Volt Catfish, if you catch my meaning. But a very powerful, very useful weapon which we're gaining from Volt Catfish here. Blaze?
Alright, Triad Thunder gets my award for Weapon of the Game here in Mega Man X3. This is great. This creates a powerful triangular shield which lingers and then shoots in 3 directions, so very useful for taking out any enemies who are remotely near you. If you charge this up, this creates an earthquake as X slams into the ground with his fists and then sends out 2 very powerful lightning balls across the ground.
Thank you, Blaze. Yeah, this can essentially take the place of your X-Buster at this stage in the game if you like. We're going to bounce back and forth, but very useful for just getting around. And it's just, you know, the fact that it lingers for a few seconds too. And you'll find they're very generous with the, as we move on to Crush Crawfish's stage. Let him enjoy his intro here. He's got those giant claws. Just a little hint as to what weapon we might expect to draw from this Maverick once we take him down, but yes, you'll find they are very generous with the weapon and health energy refills here in this game. So if you want to go ahead and use that Triad Thunder, but just drop down to this area here, and then this baddie has kind of a Rush Limbaugh on the critic effect on the floor here. I can't not think of that, actually. Liberal Cream Puff. Yeah, there's some hidden stuff there at the start, and we can't unlock that just yet. We need a upgrade there for our arm before we can get through there, but yeah, there is some stuff that we just can't access quite yet, so we'll have to double back here. But look, finally having a run-in with Bit here. Let's get some tips on taking him down, making him look foolish with Gary.
Boss beaters.
Alright, Bit, you'll want to use the Frost Shield. I like to stay on the opposite side against the wall that he's not on, and then bait him to come in low before you jump and climb the wall. Get that shot off. It will always hit him. Note that you may have to get out of this rhythm a little bit once he starts throwing some projectiles at you, like the flames or some discs that just pull you down off of the wall, but generally they're easy enough to avoid with some nice wall jumping, but yeah, not too difficult, and he'll go down pretty quickly with that Frost Shield. Good luck.
Thank you, Gary. Yeah, you can see the purpose for staying low to bait him, as Gary mentioned. Those balls kind of remind me of something that Aghanim might be sending our way in Link to the Past, another game which we've covered and Gary's given us some tips on here on Video Games 101. Too much like Blizzard Buffalo, because that's where we got it from. Anyway, love that stereo sound as I can appreciate, we hear the explosion in that left channel more, given that the boss just exploded on the left side of the screen, but we press on now. By the way, there's a hidden pit next to this energy recovery item here in just a second, which will lead us to Vile, which we're not quite ready for. We need the weapon from this stage before we can take him on, so if you want this, make sure you do an air dash over it. Also, by the way, does anyone else hear the Power Rangers theme in this music? It's like they do the Go Go Power Rain, they just don't do the jers. Yeah, not a slight, I suppose something of a slight, but yeah, the music not quite as catchy here in this installment as I think we're generally used to. So we do a dash jump over onto here. Triad Thunder doesn't work against these big boys, unfortunately, but I mean it does, but it doesn't clear them out immediately like it does some of these lightweight enemies. I don't even blame the composer, though. I mean, Power Rangers is probably peaking. We can drill through here with the Tornado Fang to grab a couple extra lives. And be very careful when you drop down here. There's some spikes there on the left. A little dangerous when you don't know what's beneath you, but... And take out this generator right here. Bionic Commando style. Yeah, I'd say Power Rangers is probably peaking around 95 or so. Theme probably just subconsciously bore its way into the composer's head, like, not unlike the Tornado Fang. Well, unlike the Tornado Fang, it didn't kill anyone. Anyway, you can see destroying that transitioned everything by 90 degrees. And I like that Frost Shield, as even if it doesn't make contact, you still get that little spiky ice bomb dropping down and taking care of business in a lot of cases. Speaking of taking care of business, let's go back to Gary for tips on Crush Crawfish.
Boss beaters.
Alright, Crush Crawfish is kind of a variation on the BB strategy because he won't always charge all the way to the wall to get you. Still, it's the same basic strategy. Use the Triad Thunder here and basically just transition back and forth between the two walls. You can use that air dash to ensure that you make it from one side to the other, or at least clear the boss no matter how far he goes. Every now and then he'll throw his claw at you, but yeah, if you're ready for it, you can dodge that off of the wall and get those shots in when you can with the Triad Thunder. Take him down.
Thank you, Gary. I like the little flourish which Crush Crawfish, when he kind of darts across the screen there, I don't know, it's something about having that claw up. Just seems like he's showing off a little bit. He has no reason to, we just completely destroyed him, but there you go. And what we get from Crush Crawfish, Blaze?
Alright, the spinning blade fires out a powerful arcing pair of discs which go behind X, up and above him. Very useful for a couple bosses in particular, but charging this also creates a very powerful, very large yo-yo, which you can control and send clockwise or counterclockwise by hitting up or down, depending on the direction you're facing, but a very important weapon for a very difficult boss late in the game.
Thank you, Blaze. So now that we have the spinning blade, we're going to actually just go right back to Crush Crawfish's stage and go to that hidden pit, which I mentioned when we were coming through the first time. So while we're backtracking here to take on Vile now that we have the appropriate weapon, let's bring in Fluff for a Fluff fact about Mega Man X3.
Released early in 1996 in North America, Mega Man X3 is the final title in the X series on the SNES. Released a year after the debut of the Sony PlayStation and several months ahead of the launch of Nintendo's next-gen Nintendo 64, Capcom understandably didn't order a large production of cartridges for this title. As such, and as is the case with some of Capcom's later NES titles, like DuckTales 2 and Rescue Rangers 2, this makes Mega Man X3 cartridges relatively rare and one of the more valuable cartridges today depending on its condition, selling brand new and unopened for a few $1,000s today on average. A 32-bit ported version of Mega Man X3 was also subsequently released on the Sega Saturn and PlayStation later in 1996, before the series moved to the Sega Saturn and Sony PlayStation for 1997's Mega Man X4, where they expanded on the admittedly limited ability to play as Zero here in X3.
Yeah, it sounds like they got the criticisms, or they heard the criticisms about the use of Zero in this game and answered the bell in that one. Changing up his weaponry and making him a little more dissimilar to X, but anyway, let's get some tips on dealing with Vile for the umpteenth time now with Gary.
Boss beaters.
Alright, I'm gonna shock you, class, when I tell you to use the BB strategy here on the first half of Vile. Climb that wall, dash over top of him when he charges at you, hit him in the back with that spinning blade maneuver, and yeah, that's gonna get it done for the first half. You should have about half of your spinning blade left over. We'll need this to finish him off, but switch over to your your X Buster at this point. Charge that baby up and get those shots in when you can. You want to dash underneath him when he's on the floor. When he makes that jump, you'll dash underneath that projectile he throws, which turns into a flaming wall which goes against the wall you're climbing. So jump over that off the wall, then he'll float up. You want to climb the wall at that point and bait those bolts he's about to fire against the top of the wall. Drop down and then get another shot off on him. Repeat this process. Just make sure the final shot administered is with the spinning blade, as that will permanently put Vile out of commission. Good luck.
Until next time, right, Gary? Thank you very much. All right, so going ahead and applying the strategy to the second half now, as Gary mentioned. Yeah, you got more time to actually charge. He's not quite as quick without his suit here in the second half, so that's when we prioritize or have more of a chance to use our X Buster, which is charged up here. Yeah. Pretty simple baiting strategy here. I like it. And yeah, generally won't have enough of that spinning blade in the canister for both forms of him, so as Gary mentioned, it's very important that we make contact with that final shot with the spinning blade. I think we got two more in here. All right, well, that'll get it done. And then this will ensure that he's actually put down for good, which is, you know, kind of a novel change. I appreciate that from Capcom. He'll continue to haunt us until he's like, oh wait, that last shot was the spinning blade, wasn't it? That's not good. Until the day you die. Any, what are they called? Story of the Year fans out there? Or The National, I suppose. Two very similarly named songs in that theme. But anyway, we properly put down Vile here. Put him down with a different weapon, and he will reappear late in the game during the Dr. Doppler stages. We also have 40-some seconds, 50 seconds, I suppose, strictly speaking, to get out of here at this point. Don't want to dawdle, don't want to stop off and fight anybody, but they give you enough time. The Frost Shield works here, or the Triad Thunder for taking down these guys quite quickly. That was fortuitous. And then we have the very slow-moving elevator to get out of here. But it's safer than going around and dealing with the falling shrapnel bits of the factory that are coming down, but mind the pits here. If you just come through with a little bit of pace, you'll have enough time to get out of here. Just can't linger, can't loiter, and then they'll send us back to Crush Crawfish's stage, and then you just go into your menu there and exit as if you revisited any other stage, but there you go. We took care of Vile. He's out of the picture for the final stages in this game. So now we're going to move on to Neon Tiger. Kind of got a Vega thing going on there. Probably bought his claws at the same store. This being a Capcom title. We can ride on these dragonflies, similar to one of the older Mega Man games. I think Mega Man 4, maybe? They had a similar kind of mechanic, but there is one instance where it can help us get a particular item on this stage. This guy out of the way, and you can see the energy tank up there, the sub-tank. Not too difficult to get without that creature, but especially if you've got the air dash just to go vertical there. But might as well use him since he's there to help out, not doing us any damage, shockingly. And now finally, against this wall here, clear out some baddies. Still loving the Frost Shield for the extra power, that or the Triad Thunder are the go-to moves. Gotta wait for that to clear off the screen before you can pull out your Tornado Fang, but once you can, pull it out. And if you got the air dash, very simple to get up here and get to this upgrade capsule. If you climb that wall that above the barrier that we broke, get kind of just up to the top, not so high that you bang your head, but if you do a dash jump, I think you can just make it to that without the leg upgrade. But again, if you're following this recommended order, then no problems. And we now have the arm upgrade once again. I say with some annoyance in my voice, why did we have to get rid of it between games? But as Dr. Light explains, we can now use this to go ahead and charge an extra level with our X-Buster, and on top of that we can charge every weapon in our arsenal to a second level, which unlocks a lot of opportunities for us. Now, mind the spikes at the bottom of that pit. Drop on down, and we got ourselves another mini-boss, so let's go back to Gary.
Boss beaters.
Alright, the Worm Seeker are not too difficult, just basically avoiding the projectiles and using what it's weak against in either the Triad Thunder or the Frost Shield, hitting its head when it presents itself out of that ground, but otherwise just dodge, take him down.
Thank you very much, Gary. Yeah, this is, especially if you're doing it in this order, this is the stage of whole mess of bosses. We have Byte to contend with in just a moment as well. But it's good to get him dealt with, and then at that point we just have the remaining Mavericks to worry about, and a few more mini-bosses. But just nice to have Bit and Byte taken care of, as well as Vile. This stage in the game, and there we go. Well, I think the mini-bosses need the grandiose, over-the-top explosion like that, but what do I know? So actually, now that we have both the leg and arm upgrades, we can do a trick which Fluff told us about in Mega Man X2, once again here in Mega Man X3, so, alright then. So Fluff, how about it?
Just like in Mega Man X2, now that we've got the arm and leg upgrades, you can use an air dash combined with a double charge on the X-Buster to perform a special technique known as the Neon Jump. To once again perform this tricky maneuver, charge your X-Buster to the max and fire off the initial shot so that you're still flashing and ready for the second shot. Now jump, air dash, then simultaneously press jump and shoot. If done correctly, this tricks the game into thinking you're on a flat surface, allowing you to perform an additional jump and possibly reach an otherwise inaccessible area outside of having the leg chip.
Very sneaky, I love it. Alright, Gary, Byte.
Boss beater.
Right, Byte is very susceptible to the BB strategy, this time using the Tornado Fang. Just get a shot off on him, get relatively close. This will do 2, sometimes 3 hits in a row to him. He'll throw a very ineffective mine at you, but you're already on the wall at this point. He'll charge at you, you'll jump over him, you'll hit him with the Tornado Fang once again. Keep this up, you'll take him down.
Thank you very much, Gary. Yeah, he is a very large target. I'm not sure what he thinks he's accomplishing with that little mine that he's tossing from side to side. But, yeah, it's not a problem for me. It's okay with me. I think he was even easier than Bit, actually, if you go by our amount of health that we lost or didn't. It's like a mini boss rush here in Neon Tiger stage. We haven't even gotten to him yet. We've already taken down 2 bosses. So yes, Bit and Byte are dealt with, as is Vile. And now that we got the arm upgrade, we've unlocked quite a bit of additional things which we can do. A little bit of backtracking after this stage. And watch out for these guys. They will actually create some spikes in the ground, so you want to take them out sooner than later, otherwise you'll run out of runway in which it's actually safe to stand on. And we can ride up this dragonfly here and then just do a dash jump off of them to grab ourselves the heart upgrade for this stage. Probably also easily grab it without using that creature, but again, being that they're there and willing to help out. Alright, let's go back to Gary now for tips on Neon Tiger.
Boss beater.
The spinning blade works very well against Neon Tiger. Not only is it his weakness, but we can use it very effectively to get into a nice rhythm with this boss. He'll dive over top of you and go to the opposite wall, at which point you'll dash away from him underneath, firing that spinning blade away from you so that it arcs back and hits him, oftentimes before he gets a chance to get a shot off on you. Every now and then he'll come down and try to slash at you, but you'll be too far away probably against the wall on the other side for him to hit. And you just go up, hit him with that spinning blade again. He'll repeat that process. And the only thing to mention, every now and then he'll turn orange and invincible temporarily. Just stay away from him while he's doing that. But yeah, stick to this strategy. Get those spinning blades in, take him down.
Thank you very much, Gary. Neon Tiger, I think that was a Killer song, wasn't it? Neon Tiger from their Day and Age record. Not one of my favorite songs, but nonetheless, if there's a reference to be made. Alright, Blaze, what did we just get from Neon Tiger?
Alright, the Ray Splasher, this fires a small spread of bullets, kind of like something out of Bionic Commando a little bit, but goes across the entire screen. And if you charge this fires out an orb, which automatically fires out bullets in all directions for 3 seconds.
Thank you very much, Blaze. Yeah, so those additional charged up descriptions which Blaze is sharing with us are now in play for us. We can charge up all of our weapons, and we can use those to collect some things which we haven't gotten before. So let's head back to Toxic Seahorse's stage here in the top right. Let's try that Bionic Commando gun. Yeah, I could see that. Another game which we actually just recently covered here on Video Games 101. You can check that out via the playlist in the description. For links to every single class which we've ever held. But yeah, loving the Triad Thunder for these weak baddies, especially when you're cutting through a level very quickly and just trying to get back to wherever you're trying to get to. Putting some of these newly acquired abilities to use. In this case, we're going to use our Frost Shield, which can now be charged up to create one of those icebergs, which Blaze mentioned what seems like a very long time ago now. We gotta cut through this. We know this is gonna be empty now. We've destroyed anyone who might make use of this room. We'll now drop in the drink here and drop right about here and pull out your Frost Shield, charge it up, and release it once it's fully charged. Note the awkward gap between letting go of the button and when X actually releases that iceberg. But ride it up, and then just do if you're in that right spot, do a little air dash to get yourself the Kangaroo ride armor. And there's a fan over here which is not allowing us to progress any further to the right, so we're gonna bring in one more iceberg here. It's annoying you can't do anything until that one breaks apart, but ride up your iceberg, get to the very edge, and then do a dash jump or air dash to the right over there. And this will take us to, this is the first of the 4 chips which I referenced earlier. We're not going to get this, but I do want to point out that this is where the leg chip is. And as Dr. Light explains, you can now, if you jumped in and grabbed this, you could do twice the air dashes. So useful for getting around, useful for dealing with some bosses, but as Dr. Light points out, we can only handle 1 of 4 enhancements. We're going to hold out for the hyper chip, as I mentioned earlier, but nonetheless, this is the completionist Mega Man X3 walkthrough, so we want to show you where each of these upgrade chips is found, even if we're not going to collect them. Just like we're not really going to use most of these ride armors ever. I think that's kind of a waste of time, but just their existence in the game, not showing where they are. But let's head back to Tunnel Rhino's place. Get something of some actual value this time. At least perceived value as far as I'm concerned. Don't pay attention to me. If we got some massive ride armor fans out there, I apologize. I just don't think it was used very effectively in this game. But mentioned it earlier, showed this earlier. So charge up that Triad Thunder and use it right here to get that giant boulder to drop down and get yourself the heart upgrade for this stage, the health upgrade. And then if you'll recall, there was one more. In this case, this is for an upgrade which we actually want. So we're just gonna hurry back to that spot. So satisfying, even when you have no cause to kill most of the enemies when you're powering through these stages. Because health isn't a concern, you know there's no boss awaiting you at the end when we're just revisiting here, so just fun to go a little bit out of your way and destroy something with the Triad Thunder. Doesn't work on these big guys. By which I mean it does, but it's just not very effective, so there you go. Works very well on these barrier creators there. And just up here and to the left. Charge it up once again. Mega Man just pulls like a WWE move right there, just showing off. Slamming the canvas, and we get... Note that the difference between the capsules, more of a greenish, bluish beam versus the pink beam. The pink beam are those single upgrade chips, but the greenish, bluish ones we always want. And as Dr. Light explains, this one is for our head upgrade. And honestly, it should be better, if you ask me. Sounds like I'm nitpicking quite a bit, and I am. But yeah, this is only used at the start of a level to identify where something is. He'll use it right now. A little misleading, but... And this will approximately show you where the items are. We've cleared everything out, so there's no dots blinking, nothing showing here. But it'll do that at the beginning of every stage, and just as importantly, it will also show you now when we select any stage whether or not we have collected everything on that stage. See right there. If it's pink, then that means we have yet to grab it, so we're going to press on now and head to the penultimate Maverick stage here. Look ridiculous. Gravity Beetle. Alright, Fluff, you got something to say about Gravity Beetle?
According to the Rockman X3 manga, Gravity Beetle is the brobot, if you will, of Boomer Kuwanger from the original Mega Man X, another Maverick which is based on a bug. Also, according to the manga, he's out for revenge on X to avenge his brobot's death.
Now we'll see how that goes for him. Thank you very much, Fluff. So, in between that little grabber and that platform that enemy is on to the left, if we go to the left there is a heart upgrade, but we can't actually... It's behind a barrier which will not be cleared until we take down the final of the Mavericks in Blast Hornet, so we'll have to come back. No surprises there, obviously, but just wanted to mention if you're thinking, oh, Professor skipped that, didn't show it. Simply because we can't access it right now, but If you do just the right jump off the near the top of that to the right and then air dash up, you can grab yourself the frog ride armor. Again, we cannot actually use any of these ride armors until 1, we have the ability to use the ride armors with an item we haven't gotten yet, and number 2, did I say 1? And number 2, we need a platform as well. And I've shown some of those platforms so far. They're kind of few and far between, maybe 1 per stage, but strictly speaking, I don't think they're ever necessary. Maybe once in the game it's necessary for getting an item, but if you don't feel like waiting for the elevator like me as well, just air dash up. And looks a little suspicious in the top left here. There we go. There's one of those platforms for the ride armor. If we did have the ride armor upgrade, then we would be able to, once we stepped on one of those, choose from our selection of acquired types of ride armors, which I guess at this point would just be the kangaroo and the frog. They're all kind of similar. They fire out different things. Actually, we do need one to clear that out and gain access to the arm chip, which we're not going to get, but again, we will show you once we revisit this stage. Speaking of all kind of similar, the musics are all they're all generally good, but yeah, they all kind of sound kind of samey in this one. Similar to the strategies for a lot of the bosses, and certainly not Gary's fault. If it works, it works. Gary?
Boss beaters.
Alright, the Toxic Seahorse strategy once again works against Gravity Beetle, this time with the Ray Splasher. We keep him pretty much stun-locked the entire boss battle with this weapon. If you get cornered, then just go ahead, climb that wall, dash over as necessary, but slow-moving boss, with the Ray Splasher, he'll take him down.
Yeah, stun lock, certainly in the sense that he can't get any attacks off on us. Bless him for not trying to vary up his strategy 1 iota during all that. But down he goes, and we just got ourselves the penultimate weapon. Blaze, what'd we just get?
Alright, the gravity well can be useful against weaker enemies. This fires a small circle, which will destroy certain enemies regardless of their location on the screen. Charge it up, and you can send certain enemies into the ceiling to destroy them. Also need to use this in one specific location to access a hidden area, but yeah, the professor will show you that.
Certainly will. It's a good color as well, like I'm gonna call that berry. Berries and, I don't know, taupe? Berries and beige. That's good. Gotta say, Gravity Beetle didn't make much of a case for revenge there, avenging Boomer. But anyway, let's not kick him when he's down / explode it. Let's move on to the final Maverick stage, and then we'll do a sweep of everything that we missed. But first, Blast Hornet. And by process of elimination, we know, and just the fact that we're going in the order of these bosses' weaknesses, we know that gravity is going to work very well against him, taking his wings away. But 3 items, 3 secrets to be found here in the Blast Hornet stage. Just take out one of these guys, it immediately becomes a lot safer. Not that it was ever that dangerous to begin with. And you know what? Darn it if it doesn't sound like Power Rangers theme again, actually. Hear that do-do-do-do-do. Anyway, alright, so we may lose a life here, but I just want to show this is possible. This is me being stubborn, but you can take the ride armor if you have it to get up here, but you find they're a little more generous with the spikes at the bottom of that. But there you go, I'm quite pleased with that. But you can go ahead, even with a single air dash. That's assuming you didn't pick up the leg chip, which would render this redundant anyway, since you can only have one. So this is a good one. If you only had to pick one, it's hard to say. There's a case to be made for all these, but the energy capsule here, this will, if you just stand still, as Dr. Light said, it will slowly refill your health. Very useful before you take on a boss. Useful if you want to top off all of your energy tanks as well. Just makes the game stupid easy. But the hyper chip is going to make it really stupid easy, as you will see. And we got a mini boss here. Gary?
Boss beater.
Alright, not a lot of strategy for the Shurikein. Just go ahead, dodge its attacks when it's charging at you, all that good stuff. Use the acid burst to fire away at this boss when you get opportunities. Remember that it splashes a little bit, that can help you out sometimes, but 7 shots from this weapon will take him down.
Thank you very much, Gary. And I think Fluff has a fact related to the look of this boss, for lack of a better, but there's more items to be had here. Actually, we're finally going to grab ourselves the ability to use ride armor here in just a second. So let's keep it here for the moment. So if you climb up this and then jump at the top to get on top of the roof of this hangar here, then head over here to the right and we can break through the floor here by destroying those. And if we go ahead and use the, actually, it's the drill, the Fang tornado here. Don't need to be upgraded or anything in this case, but destroy this crate right here. Drop down a ways, and you can see the ride armor being held captive by kind of the same thing that we were being grabbed by earlier when Zero had to come save our robotic hide. But now you can ride this up and just enjoy the ride armor, smashing things, using the dash on it. And you'll note that the ride armor has its own dedicated health bar right there. Pretty nice. And you jump up and then dismount from it. You can climb this up. Not that we would have needed that. We could have just used a normal air dash, but to save the feelings of our ride. Oh, someone jacked our ride armor. Or it heard what I said and got offended and just walked off on its own. That's alright, ride armor. We'll meet again soon. Useless as you are, relatively speaking. Very effective against these little guys on the conveyor belts. Mind the spikes there on the right. Spikes come in a lot of varieties here in Mega Man X3. They're all equally deadly. And just pick your moment here when you dash through. Not too difficult to avoid, honestly, but... Alright, let's go back to him again for tips on the final unique Maverick that we are to fight. Obviously, we have the boss rush later, but as I said, I got a hunch for this one. Gary?
Boss beaters.
Alright, Blast Hornet, we're just gonna keep using our gravity well. Keep firing that, keep that in play, and then otherwise you can just focus on prioritizing dodging those projectiles it throws out there every now and then, but yeah, not too difficult. Just takes a little while.
Love fire and forget. Thank you very much, Gary. And you'll see that every now and then a couple of these little Hornets will die off before the others to give yourself a little bit more safe runway to touch down on from the wall or wherever you might be. It's got to be very frustrating for this boss to be made so redundant so quickly. There you go. Wings have been clipped. And that does it for the final of the, again, novel Mavericks we have yet to face. We will have the classic Mega Man boss rush a little bit later. But now it's all about doing some cleanup work here. Revisiting a handful of stages and making sure we grab all of the upgrades. Speaking of which, we got our last weapon here, Blaze.
Alright, the Parasitic Bomb fires a steadily moving, powerful projectile across the screen, but if you hold this down, this will seek out your targets on the screen, and if they're weak enough, kill them very quickly while slowly depleting your weapon energy when it's attacking enemies.
Thank you, Blaze. And checking back in with Dr. Kane. We pulled some memory chips from the Mavericks controlled by Dr. D. Analyzed them and found out that Dr. Doppler's trying to create a powerful new battle body. Okay. Special abilities from the latest breed of Reploids. Well, can't be that tough. We put them all down with relative ease. Battle body? He said that like, can I get one of those? How about we just stop pawning off my stuff at the end of every game? I'll settle for that. I know I keep beating that point, but get ready to have your minds blown here. Armor's not for him, it's for someone else. Sigma going 3 for 3 in appearances here in Mega Man X3. Can he still be alive? I don't know. Vile's been alive in every game. I bet you figure out the right weapons for these guys, just like we did with Vile in this one. Put him down for good. I actually don't remember if Vile's in 4. Probably even money that he's definitely in that game. Who am I kidding? Yeah, so let's put Sigma down for good. An NS gravy train? Come on, Zero. More importantly, we have more important work to do. Alright, so before we enter Dr. D's underground, whatever you want to call that, again, we can go and see which ones we have not yet cleaned out. It'll show the pink items, or the items in pink, if you have yet to find them and redeem them. They'll be white if you've already collected them. Note that the individual chips, that the second upgrade chips, second level ones that I've been referring to and saying, you know, look but don't touch, as we grab, as I mentioned now that we took out Blast Hornet, the box that would have been blocking that out is now gone, so we can grab ourselves the heart health upgrade there. But yeah, the chips will appear, if they exist on the stages, as question marks. It won't even identify what the actual chip is, but so kind of helps you to know in ensuring if you do want to grab the hyper chip at the end, as we're going to show you, that yeah, you should, everything should be white in every stage, all the items from the stage select, minus 4 of the pink question marks. 1 for each of 4 stages to represent those extra second level chips. So we're going to be grabbing ourselves the ride armor and then knocking our way through the wall that I pointed out earlier that I stated that we needed the ride armor for, and this is to just show you where one of those chips is. And while we're doing this, let's bring in Fluff to finally talk about sort of the visuals of that boss we had earlier, and the visuals of an upcoming boss as well. But here's the ride armor. Get on the pad. Select the one that you want. In this case, we're going to take the N, just the vanilla, I guess, Chimera ride armor, so we can punch a hole through that wall. But anyway, Fluff?
I didn't mention this in our class on it, but just like its predecessor Mega Man X2, Mega Man X3 features the Capcom Consumer Custom Chip, also known as the C4 chip, to create some limited 3D vector graphics. This was a Hitachi-produced math coprocessor which allowed for wireframe effects, sprite positioning, and rotation, and was one of many different enhancement chips which were specific to a little under 100 different games on the SNES to provide additional visuals the SNES wasn't capable of on its own, like the Super FX chip for Star Fox. Manifesting in the final battle with Sigma in X2, X3 features the chip in the form of Sigma's computer virus manifestation. You can actually perform a self-test with the chip by holding B on the second controller when you start the game up in both Mega Man X2 and X3.
Thank you very much, Fluff. Speaking of chips, how about that? That worked out well. So yeah, that would have been for the ARM chip, so that we'd have access to basically the X-Buster charged up on demand, and then, as Light explained, when we take damage, that's how we refill that one. But Blaze will give us an overview on all these once we get that hyper chip. But we return now to Crush Crawfish's stage, and thankfully everything is right here at the start of this one. So first, let's charge up our Triad Thunder right here. This will take us to the final of the ride armors, the Hawk ride armor, which we can use to kind of float a little bit. A little extra hang time. Let's pop that on right now, actually, over here at the ride armor platform. Some sweet missile launchers on this thing, I like that. You can tell X, he's having a good time in the cockpit there, but so let that guy do his critic Rush Limbaugh thing again, and then just drop straight to the right, down 2 levels, and then fire through the wall and grab yourself the heart upgrade for this stage. And we have one final pickup to point out here. Drop down into this pit and fire away at the wall, and this should be the final of the chip upgrades, and the final one we're going to ignore. So by process of elimination, this is the body chip, and this increases our defensive ability. We actually haven't even gotten the normal body upgrade yet. Kind of funny. Saving that until late. We have not really been hurting for it, or because of a lack of it. Say it would be nice if the helmet upgrade could be used on demand to show us, just as a refresher, how close we are to different items in the stage, but not the case. Alright, so speaking of that body upgrade, you can now see as we highlight these, again, the question marks are a chip that we neglected. So by process of elimination, Volt Catfish has our remaining body upgrade, which we have yet to pick up, and we'll need the charged up gravity weapon for that, and also one last tank, which we haven't picked up yet. So the tank's a little bit closer to the end, but we're in the bottom left corner there at the start. But the body upgrade is about a third the way through. Pointed out that platform earlier, and note that that elevator would have taken us down as an entrance to Vile's factory, but seeing as we already took out Vile, it just stays in place right there. So Fluff mentioned this being one of the more valuable, by which I mean one of the rarer titles for the SNES. Curious class, what is the most valuable game that you have in your collection? For those of you who have collections. I mentioned this before, but my brother and I, we grew up on those late 80s, early 90s consoles, and have a pretty respectable collection of NES titles, at least, probably in the somewhere 200 to 300 range or something like that. But yeah, I'm trying to think of what might be. None of it's in boxes anymore. I don't know if anyone has any mint unopened boxes, if anyone had that much foresight, or maybe you purchased one after the fact, but I'd be curious. Kind of like the star of your wine collection, but for classic games. But charge up that gravity well and use it right here as you get like a very epic pose that X strikes. And this one we will jump into. This will allow us to take less damage from hits. The armor upgrade. Little defense field pops up, and then we take even less damage for that subsequent hit. And then once we get the hyper chip, or if you went ahead and got the next level chip for this, it reduces the damage even more. You're just indestructible, basically. It's tank mode for the rest of the game. Remember, we're not quite finished with this stage yet. We need to still grab ourselves the final S-Tank, sub-tank, if you will. And who can forget this room where we had our climactic battle with somebody? I've already forgotten. There's a lot of bosses in this game. And yeah, depending on who you've already defeated, I mentioned this earlier, you might get some different varieties of enemies later on in the game. What have we not done yet? We do the Kangaroo? Not really sure what makes this the Kangaroo ride armor. Do kangaroos have spike hands? I don't know, but anyway, take the ride armor down and just drop down, and the weight of the ride armor will cause the ground to give out, and kind of propped up in a very Super Metroid type fashion right there. Speaking of sub-tanks, that definitely makes me think of that, but grab yourself the final sub-tank. So now everything is accounted for, and we can move on to the first of Dr. Doppler stages here. And here early on at the start, we can actually grab ourselves the hyper chip, which will pretty much make us indestructible for the remainder of this game. You can already see with our armor upgrade mine at the ceiling right there. Careful with your dash jumps, that was a little close. As very gingerly climb the wall there, but there's going to be a pit, and we're going to hug the wall of that pit. And alright, so this is a little dangerous here sometimes, especially after doing the dash jump for an entire game. I admit my hands get a little tired, but the key here is not doing dash jumps, just normal jumps as you wall climb right here. Just nice full length jumps. And there you go. Oof. No death run intact, but yeah, that's the other place where I might have lost one. Feeling pretty good about our prospects from here on out, but just for the sake of drama, we may still die, so don't go anywhere. And we have a bit of a mini boss here, and intense face. Scary?
Boss beater.
Alright, if you got Zero here, he'll help you out, but it's not necessary. Just get out your spinning blade, get close, keep firing. A few shots of this will take this boss down very quickly, whether the ceiling's coming down or not.
There you go. Yeah, he'll keep the ceiling from being an issue, but yeah, not necessary when you've got the right weapon. Just get in his face, blast away, and forget he even hit us, with our armor being what it is. Good to know, Zero. No disrespect, I don't know how many people play these games for the story. I appreciate that they always try to reinvent it. I think Keiji Inafune was proud about kind of getting away from the normal villain, and it's like more of like a computer virus as the final, sorry, spoiler alert, as the final boss in this one, but so it's a little bit different, but you know, I guess for a Mega Man X game it's very different, but relatively speaking it's kind of the same old thing. Anyway though, I acted like it was much earlier. By the way, there's some health on that shelf right there. Health on the shelf. Yeah, it's a little bit later than I quoted you earlier, but drop down this pit and hug the left wall. And this time, we absolutely want to get into this pink pod here. Install this chip to enhance all your parts. There you go. Alright, Blaze, how about the hyper chip?
Alright, the hyper chip proves that good things come to those who wait, as this basically makes you pretty much unstoppable for the rest of the game. Note the requisite: you have to have all 8 hearts, the 4 sub-tanks, the 4 upgrades, and not have claimed any of those previous chips. But this gives you the capabilities of all 4 chips simultaneously. That's an extra air dash, this will refill your health while you're standing still, and your tanks as well. This will cut your damage by 50% and give you a barrier. While that's up, that gives you 75% damage cut, and it unlocks the Giga attack as well, which allows you to use your X-Buster attack on demand, using kind of the weapon power like other weapons have, but you refill this one with damage.
Good call, Blaze, and let's speed this up to show the effects of it, topping off that last sub-tank in real time, or sped up real time. Not a bad idea to do that before all the remaining bosses of this game. Just, you know, go make yourself a snack, come back, have full health, and alright, Gary?
Boss beater.
Alright, the hardest thing about the press disposer boss is getting those tornado fangs to hit the eyes. So when they're in the air, you want to do a dash jump off of the wall, over the projectile, get as close as you can before you fire that shot, ensure that's going to hit him in the eyes. When he's on the ground, it's easier, just run up right to his face, shoot him close enough so that it immediately hits him in the eye. You don't have to wait for it to move left to right to get to him, but yeah, those hits will stack up very quickly if your aim is true, but yeah, stick to this strategy, take him down.
Thank you, Gary. And I like this boss because if you hit him in, I guess, that trunk too many times, it will destroy it, and he'll begin leaking out acid, which will pool on the floor and slowly rise. So it's a clever boss right there. I like that, or clever boss design, I should say, better said. But there you go. So we have a bit of a junction coming up here, depending on, I mean, if you've done everything else to this point, as we've done it, depending on what you do in this next spot will dictate sort of a variation on the ending of the game and whether or not we can obtain the most powerful weapon in the entire game. By the way, I love that gold on X. That's a great look. Just to call that out. And here's these guys again. Saw them much earlier, but Fluff, you want to maybe clue us in as to what's going on here?
In order to access Zero's Z-Saber as X and ultimately get the worst ending, you need to both have defeated Vile earlier on using the specific weapon the Professor and Gary covered, and Zero still needs to be alive, and you need to be playing as him as you enter the mini-boss Mosquitus' room. If you did not defeat Vile earlier on, this mini-boss's room will be empty and destroyed, seemingly because Vile wrecked the place en route to arriving at the end of the stage when you would have to face him, either destroying Mosquitus himself or maybe just allowing the bug to fly away through one of the destroyed windows in the background.
Good call, Fluff. So this is that battle right here. So if you want to get the Z-Saber, then you would switch to Zero before coming in here, but it's a worse ending, as we'll have Fluff show us. But let's get some tips on this one nonetheless with Gary.
Boss beater.
Mosquitus, not difficult. Just keep your distance. Dash when that boss swoops down at you when they get close enough, but otherwise just use those charged X-Buster shots to take him down.
Thank you very much, Gary, and that's a cool shot right there. Framed by the white, the charged up in the gold armor there for X. All hyper chipped up. But yeah, during the ending we'll show you kind of the alternative ending if you let Zero die there. I say die, he's not dead, he just can't be used anymore and he's not there for the ending because he needs some repairs, but that kind of goes back to what I was referring to earlier about how they make X seem like he's so reliant on Zero, and Zero's, so much more superior to X in every way, and yet that weak little mosquito boss right there was able to take him down. We put him down, no problem whatsoever. But, alright, so here we just take out these guys, mind the spikes, keep your distance. Take the right one, then take the left one, make sure you shoot out their armor as soon as they appear. And then you want to stay on the right one and ignore the final left one, that'll take you the rest of the way. But, Blaze, had we sacrificed Zero to get that Z-Blade, can you tell us a bit about it?
Alright, Z-Saber, this one is silly powerful. This unlocks an extra level of charge for X and fires a beam across the screen when he's using the Z-Saber, specifically firing that shot. But if you want to talk how powerful this is, this removes 60% of a full boss bar with each successful hit. So land 2 of these on any boss after the point which you pick it up and they're going to be dead.
Yeah, thank you, Blaze. It's a lot more grounded and less silly than, and again, you can see if we do take this left one, it's a dead end essentially, so we want to stay on that right one there. It's a lot more grounded than, say, the Hadouken that Mega Man gets, or the, the Shoryuken, the Ryu's kind of, crazy uppercut move from Street Fighter. Not that I don't appreciate the silliness of it, but I'm going to go ahead and kill one of these tanks right here. Ahead of this boss, let's bring in Gary for tips on this one.
Boss beater.
Alright, it goes without saying, from this point on, if you've got the Z-Saber, if you played that way, then go ahead and use it, as it's going to be very effective on all subsequent bosses, and this one included. Volt Kurageil, you want to go ahead, if you don't have it, and use your frost shields, firing at the upper half of this boss, just climbing that wall, and just air dash, jump dash to avoid the projectiles, but that's the strategy.
Thank you very much, Gary. Yeah, it's a bummer that we can't get the best weapon in the game while simultaneously keeping Zero alive, or you know what I'm saying, in the game. Feels like we're being punished for doing the right thing here, assuming you know the difference, but there you go. Frost Shield works just fine, though. Doesn't work Z-Saber fine, but kind of makes you wonder how Zero could ever lose a battle, given that he's just got that on demand. But anyway, so it's time for the boss rush, and then the final couple bosses here in Mega Man X3. And then, yeah, we'll show you the Sans Zero version of the ending. All these strategies will remain the same, though, for this boss rush here. I guess outside of Blizzard Buffalo, when we can go ahead and use the Parasitic Bomb. I guess we didn't have that for him when we came across him the first time. So take your pick. I could tell you which is which, but it really doesn't matter. And remember, if you've got the Hyper Chip, then you can really just hang out in between these battles and regain all your health, so no excuses at this point if you're kitted out to a silly degree like we are right here. Once again, just completely humbling Blast Hornet with the Gravity Well. About to say, I was thinking if we get into a nice rhythm, he won't get any attacks off, but even through his kind of half stun, he managed to get a few projectiles out, but that might be his only move. There we go. Embarrassing. Yeah, he got the short end of the stick. You know, say what you will about the BB strategy, all the bosses which are susceptible to that, but man, to be made to just be embarrassed to that degree. But moving on. Oh, and every time you take down one of the Mavericks, this thing will have regenerated, and you can shoot the heck out of it to top off any weapon powers, get some extra health. Again, really not necessary when you've got the Hyper Chip, but let's see who we're drawing now. You can get a hint by the size of the room here. Our old friend Blizzard Buffalo, and using that bomb right here, Parasitic Bomb. I don't believe the charged version would do much to this boss. It's mostly for weaker enemies. Might try some of the vertical air dash. Just there's that little kind of there's like a delay that you don't get when you're air dashing left to right. I don't know why. Maybe just because, you know, the gravity takes a bit more thrust when you're trying to go down to up rather than left to right or right to left. I guess I can buy that explanation that I just made up. If he does grab you, there you go. That's what it looks like. And he froze us. But if you tap your buttons, it really doesn't matter. You can break out of it before he can even get over to you. And we got that extra shield working for us, so this really is a cakewalk. It is very fun, though, I have to say. I did do this as I was running this a few times. I did try it with Zero's Z-Saber for X, and yeah, it's just it's silly powerful. It's everything that Blaze described. 60% of a full boss bar. Just chops them down to size. Rocky 4 style. Alright, Volt Catfish going back to, I believe is our Tornado Fang here. You do tend to throw strategy a bit more out the window when you know you've got the cushion of the Hyper Chip in your back pocket. Makes you lazy, class, that's what I'm trying to say. But honestly, at the end of a 2-hour-long game where we've put in the effort, we've gotten all the secrets to afford ourselves the Hyper Chip, I say we've earned it. Earned the opportunity to kick our feet up. I think that's what the equivalent of this is. Not even having to move at this point. Again, just feel sorry for him. You might want to try something else, VC. Nope. It's a good death still right there. Moving on, now we got Gravity Beetle. And this is going back to the Bionic Commando weapon here. Looks like a J. I don't know why I always think Joker when I see that. This is the Ray Splasher, so I'm really not sure where the J is coming from unless I'm misreading that. Anyway. Just a few more now. And regarding which weapon you need for the next boss, assuming you don't have the Z-Saber, make sure that you have, and by which I mean once we're done with the boss rush, make sure that you've got the Acid Burst. Maybe about, half a tank of Acid Burst. Speaking of which, doesn't take that many to take down. Tunnel Rhino. And actually, you don't even need to account for your weapon use of any weapons which the final bosses are weak against, because they actually are nice and top you off in between stages. It's a courtesy which Dr. Wily never extended to Mega Man back in the day. By which I mean, pretty much the same year, I think. Mega Man 6 was coming out around the same time, but yeah, in this case, no worries. Once we take down the boss at the end of this stage, everything will be topped off. We'll be in good shape in more ways than one. Just a couple more left now. What do we have left? We have Neon Tiger. All right. Crush Crawfish. Yeah, it's the backwards dash that he does that I like, the little flourish that he does with that claw up. And remember, these little tiny things that he launches at you don't even do any damage to you. They just pull you off the wall. And generally you have time enough to recover before he even makes a dash at you. He might not do it this time. That's disappointing. Oh, there it is. All right. It doesn't even change his animation, I'm realizing. I don't know. I'm just reading into it. Love that Triad Thunder, though. And at this point, it might just be one left. I'm trying to think of who we've missed. Yeah, I really can't think. It's, Toxic Seahorse. Ridiculous design. Remember, someone came up with this idea. This was, Capcom always outsources. They always hold those contests. Come up with your own boss designs, descriptions, and all that. And, they pick the winners. I think Fluff mentioned that in a handful of our original Mega Man classes for the NES, but yeah, at a certain point, like that one lingering Ice Shield Blast right there, Frost Shield, excuse me. Alright, that should do it. Time to finally throw down with Dr. D, Dr. Doppler. And we haven't even used it yet, I don't think, but yeah, there's the charged shot, which we have on demand for what it's worth. I actually don't find myself using it for a lot of bosses because there's a bit of a delay when you fire it off. Oh, I forgot one. So who did we forget? This is really gonna... Oh, I'm sorry, Neon. I like Neon Tiger, too. My fault, my fault. I actually think this is the most novel of all the strategies of all the Mavericks in this one. The fire away and dash underneath. Just something, anything different, you know, from the standard stick to the wall, jump over them, dash jump, air dash, what have you. I'm more partial to the dash jump than the air dash. Although I suppose having the hyper chip, we could even string together an additional air dash after the dash jump. But yeah, your fingers will be exhausted by the end of this one. Mention it in the controls. You can double tap a direction to dash as well, but just doesn't feel quite as immediate to me. I also didn't mention this, but then again, it's because it's not really applicable to this game, but the dash and fire that they had in the earlier games, where it does a bit more damage, did not carry over into this one for what it's worth. So Fluff did not mention that, but now we just have this very brief corridor taking us to face Dr. Doppler, and again, you can dash through these. Actually, let me revise that. When they're pointed toward you, it's easier to get through without taking damage, but when you got the hyper shield, who cares about damage? Honestly. Appreciate the Neo move, that your last line of defense right there. In that little turret there, Dr. Doppler, but let's get some tips on taking him down with relative ease, once again with Gary.
Boss beater.
Right, Dr. Doppler is incredibly easy if you stick to this strategy. Use the acid burst, but only hit him when he begins to surround himself in flames. Hit him then, go to the wall, jump over him as he charges at you, and then get one more hit in as he's kind of coming out of that motion. He will then take 3 very easy to dodge shots at you. You can bait these up by jumping a little bit, being on the wall, whatever you want to do. And then he'll just stand there for a second. Don't hit him when he's stationary like this, as he'll take whatever you hit him with and turn it back into health for himself. You only want to hit him again once he covers himself in flames once again and repeats the whole process anew. But stick to this strategy, you'll take him down very quickly.
All right, let's put it to the test. Thank you very much, Gary. Way too much dialogue. If Gary can go through an entire in-depth strategy for a boss and the dialogue is still going on. But, all right, baiting those shots, waiting, and then once he gets that little flame shield up, just like Gary said, and then get him on the other side as well. Yeah, he wants you to hit him so you can get some health back right there, but we're not going to let him. It's kind of embarrassing how easy this guy is if you know what you're doing. At least make those shots a little bit faster, you know? I guess the only hard thing about this boss is it goes against every instinct that you might have to shoot him when he's just standing there, you know? Just, you know, he's not guarding. I want to get a shot off on him, but the battle will go on for a very long time. Should you do that, so. Or at least speed those things up a little bit more once he is getting closer to death. Not sure what those tanks on his back are doing, but not much. Down he goes. What do you got to say now? Thanks, Doc. All right. Time for the final bosses here in Mega Man X3. If for some reason you need to stop back off at Volt Catfish's stage, for example, now's the time to do it, but yeah, the Neo move, it throws me sometimes, but yeah, not sure why you would save your weakest enemies as your last line of defense, but it's your mistake, not mine. Hey, Zero. So Zero's still alive, so he'll show up. He would not if he were back at base after tangling with the very weak, just to remind everyone, the very, very weak Mosquitus boss, or yeah, if he died as you were playing with him, dropped him down a pit or something. Can't follow him in case you were wondering. It's always the I'll take care of so-and-so off screen that presumably needs to be done, but you do all the hard work of actually fighting the final boss. Of course, and I say it all the time, it's only hard if you don't have Gary.
Boss beater.
Alright, Sigma can be very frustrating unless you stick to this strategy. I like to charge up that spinning blade so we can use that very powerful yo-yo to hit him, but only at very opportune times. So he'll fire some kind of fire shots at you. You want to stick to the wall, stay on top of the wall, and then use that double air dash to transition from one side to the other. He will then jump across the screen, left to right or right to left, at which point you want to unleash that spinning blade, that charged spinning blade to hit him as he's moving. You don't even have to jump off the wall, just kind of drop off the wall, aiming at him and letting that loose at just the right time like we show. Then just climb back up the wall, wait for him to get some shots off, transition behind him once again, repeat the process anew. Every now and then he'll throw his shield at you if you stay at the very top of the wall. This can't hit you, so stick to this strategy. You'll take him down very quickly.
Thank you very much, Gary. Excellent strategy, and incidentally, also nice to finally have a use for that oversized novelty yo-yo right there. I mean, it's nice when X's nieces and nephews come to visit, I suppose, but beyond that, good to know that it kills Sigma dead, or whatever version he's rocking right here, or was rocking. But speaking of whatever version, we got one more, so Gary, take us home.
Boss beater.
Alright, Kaiser Sigma, the final boss here in Mega Man X3, gets my award for toughest boss in this game, but that said, he's still not that difficult, especially if you've got all the upgrades, which we've got at this point. You should have all your health, all your tanks filled for the most part as well, so not too difficult, but still, nonetheless. What you want to do is basically get charge shots from your X-Buster. It's the only thing that hurts him in his head, like we show. The hardest thing about this battle is that it's difficult to get the very limited and narrow window to hit his head to get those shots off successfully. You also have to contend with those slow but powerful hitting mines which float around and target you. They'll bounce off of one surface and kind of refocus on top of you, so be aware of that, but stay out of his beam as well. Doesn't do big damage unless you hang out inside of it, which I'm assuming you're not going to do, but yeah, just do what we do on screen right here. Getting those charge shots in, hitting him in the head. Obviously, if you got the Z-Saber, your battle's probably already over already, but yeah, there you go. That's the strategy for Kaiser Sigma, and one last little bit. Not out of the woods yet, but very close.
Thank you very much, Gary. Keep wanting to say Kaiser Sosa. Kaiser Sigma. By the way, we could be using the Hyper Beam or whatever it is that we got from the Hyper chip, so that we can just fire charge shots on demand, but again, I find there's just a little bit of a delay. It's not quite as effective as when you just do it the old-fashioned way, charging up yourself, and you can aim your shots a little bit more easily. That beam kind of reminds me of something from Super Metroid, something that Mother Brain would have used, in her walkie stage. Very sad, very emotional scene in that game, but wouldn't be surprised if Capcom was influenced by that a little bit. If you're gonna rip off a game, might as well be one of the best on the SNES, one of the best of all time in Super Metroid. Yeah, just tedious, just lining up these shots. One more ought to do it though. There we go. Still got the charge going for the ride home. As Gary mentioned, we're not quite out of the woods just yet. Gonna need to climb the wall as the room fills with lava. All evil geniuses just have that little switch. Can I flip that and get this chamber filled with deadly lava? Is that redundant? Deadly lava? It's actually not that deadly, it's the thing. You'll see, as we're trying to get out of here, Sigma, the computer virus form, and there's the kind of the wire graphics from that chip that Fluff was talking about earlier. We had it with that boss earlier on, but certainly here for computer virus version of Sigma. But yeah, the lava doesn't do that much damage, which is good because, yeah, he does a pretty good job blocking you off, knocking you down into the lava, but yeah, he blew his budget on just everything else in this game, and he bought the cheap lava that doesn't do all that much damage to us, thankfully. So it's all autopilot from here on out. Just enjoying the ending, and I'm still shocked that Mega Man, or X, dropped the D word there. Alright, so this is going to vary depending on whether or not we still have Zero around or not, as we've sort of been alluding to. He probably has the best music in the game, let's be honest, Zero. I'll give him that much. And yeah, knowing what we do about that Z-Saber, that had to hurt. Yeah, how do you like that, Sigma? I picked up an anti-Sigma virus program from Doppler. It's like the latest version of McAfee or whatever it was from back in the day. They're probably still around and not just in a fake me out virus pop-up that shows up on your screen capacity. Good. You suck. Get out of here. Yes, you'll be back in X4, presumably. And then we just do our standard warp out right there. I guess you need a hole in the ceiling. I don't know. It seems like it's never been an issue before. It seems like we pop through a lot of ceilings all the time that definitely don't have cutaways like that, but anyway, the classic base explodes and then they kind of pan away, or in this case just reveal more of the screen, and you get to see there we are, taking it in from the safety of a ledge very far away. Capcom loves this. A lot of developers loved it back in the day. X has crushed Sigma's plan once again, but many questions still occupy his mind. Yeah, am I going to lose all my abilities between games again? Why must humans fight against Replo, who's getting deep, asking the deep questions? And why did they take my stuff away between games? And why must we fight against each other? Well, clearly for the entertainment of humanity. But as X stares at the burning remnants of Doppler's lab, his body trembles from an unknown sorrow. I forgot the depth they get into in this ending here. What does fate have in store for me, he wonders. This is where they kind of plug the next game in the series. You can only hope that someday Dr. Light's plan for him will finally be revealed, but nope, not in this game. There's more money to be made. Unknown to X, his destiny has already been decided. By the developers at Capcom. To save mankind, he must destroy Zero. First time I saw this, I missed the X doesn't realize this, and I was like, oh. Zero's like, what are you thinking about right now, X? You don't need to worry about that. Only time will tell when and why. Time and money, to quote Spaceballs. Well, the search for more money, excuse me. I'm paraphrasing. / butchering, but there you go, Mega Man X3. And now we have the classic Mega Man walk home. And while we're doing this, we've been teasing it. Fluff, can you tell us what happens should Zero not be, let's say, in the party at the end of the game?
Should Zero be defeated either by design if used during the battle with Mosquitus, or simply through the course of playing the game and dying while controlling him, players will instead see a slightly different ending as Dr. Doppler shows up and uses his own body as the antivirus. sacrificing himself to save the day. There's no exchange with Zero in this case, and X is forced to make the usual walk back home alone.
There you go. Thank you very much, Fluff. Big thanks to all my TAs for working very hard for this one. A lot to cover, obviously, but there you go. The complete Mega Man X3 walkthrough right here on Video Games 101. If you haven't already done so, please consider subscribing to enroll in these classes. We do one of these classes every single week in the same spot. Love to have you enrolled. Click that like button too if you don't mind. Really does help us out to make future classes for you. And leave a comment if you haven't already, whether it's your preferred Mega Man X3 boss order or otherwise. But that's our time. We'll see y'all next week in the same spot for next week's class, right here on Video Games 101. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to like and comment on this video, and click subscribe if you haven't already, as this seriously helps me to keep making great content for you. And check the description of this video to see what song is playing right now.